The Zorthans had conquered countless planets. Their empire stretched across galaxies, known for its brutal efficiency. Earth was supposed to be another quick addition to their dominion. From orbit, it looked like the perfect target, a blue planet with rich resources and primitive civilizations that couldn't possibly resist their advanced technology. The invasion would be swift, the victory inevitable. General Kaos, the Zorthan commander, gave the order to deploy. Their first landing zone was chosen strategically, a vast desert in Earth's southwestern region, devoid of major cities, allowing them to establish a foothold before moving inland. What Kaos didn't know was that the desert was anything but desolate. It had its own rules, its own guardians, and soon, the Zorthans would learn that Earth was not as defenseless as it seemed. As the Zorthan ships descended through the atmosphere, kicking up swirling clouds of dust, their sensors struggled to map the terrain. The heat was intense, but that was no concern to the cold-blooded Zorthans. The real challenge began when their advanced scanners began to malfunction. "What's wrong with the sensors?" Kaos barked at his lieutenant. "I don't know, sir. It's as if the sand itself is disrupting our technology. Every scan returns different data, as if the landscape is changing beneath us." Kaos scoffed. "We've conquered harsher worlds. Begin the landing." The ships touched down, massive metallic hulks in the middle of an ocean of sand dunes. Zorthan soldiers disembarked, securing a perimeter with their energy weapons. Their technology was far superior to anything on Earth, or so they thought. But the desert had other plans. At first, everything seemed fine. The Zorthans began setting up base, drilling into the ground to extract resources, but strange things started happening almost immediately. Their machinery began to overheat. Sandstorms erupted from nowhere, blinding their sensors. Communication with their orbiting fleet became spotty, and soon, completely cut off. The desert was alive. As night fell, temperatures dropped dramatically. The Zorthans, used to controlling environments, found themselves struggling with the sheer extremes. But it wasn't the cold that was the real threat, it was the creatures of the desert. Small at first, they went unnoticed: scorpions the size of a hand, snakes slithering silently, burrowing creatures that attacked their machines from below. Kaos dismissed them as nuisances. "Deploy the drones," he ordered. But the drones malfunctioned, unable to navigate the swirling sands or track the rapid movement of the creatures. Then, more peculiar events began to unfold. Water rations inexplicably dried up. Energy supplies strained faster than they could be replenished. The Zorthans' advanced tech seemed powerless against the relentless, unyielding force of the desert. Back at the Earth Command Center, miles away, the human military watched with growing confusion. They had picked up the alien landing and expected an invasion. The government had scrambled to prepare, fearing mass destruction. But as the days passed, it became clear that the aliens weren't advancing. In fact, they were stuck. Reports trickled in of failed alien patrols and strange environmental phenomena occurring in the desert. One general, a grizzled veteran of many conflicts, smirked as he looked over the satellite feeds. "Looks like Mother Nature's fighting back for us." As the days turned into weeks, the Zorthans grew desperate. Their numbers were dwindling. The heat during the day was unbearable, and the cold at night was deadly. The sandstorms never ceased, and the desert creatures attacked with increasing ferocity. Even their energy shields couldn't keep them safe from the relentless onslaught of Earth's harshest environment. Kaos, now gaunt and haggard, stood atop a dune, staring out into the endless sea of sand. "Now," he whispered to himself, "how can this primitive world resist us?" A sudden gust of wind blew sand into his face, stinging his eyes. As he wiped the grains away, he saw something in the distance, a figure, a lone human, standing defiantly on a distant dune, watching. Kaos ordered his remaining soldiers to capture the human, but as they approached, the figure disappeared, as if swallowed by the desert itself. It was then that Kaos realized this wasn't just a barren wasteland. The desert was alive, and it had claimed its territory. Earth's humans weren't fighting alone. The planet itself was an ally, and the Zorthans were invaders in a land that refused to be conquered. In the end, the The mighty Zorthan invasion force was reduced to nothing more than a handful of survivors. Their ships were buried beneath the shifting sands, their technology rendered useless. Chaos, broken and defeated, sent one final message to his fleet before they abandoned the mission. Earth is more dangerous than we imagined. It is not humans that fight us, but the planet itself. And so, the Zorthans retreated, their conquest halted by a force they never anticipated, the unforgiving, indomitable power of Earth's desert. The humans, unaware of the role their planet had played, prepared for war that never came, and the desert, vast and timeless, returned to its quiet watch, a silent guardian of Earth, waiting for the next invader to underestimate its power. The Zorthans, now licking their wounds after their humiliating defeat in the desert, regrouped in the safety of space. Though their numbers were severely diminished, they were far from defeated. General Chaos, furious and desperate to salvage his honor, turned his gaze toward Earth's greener regions, lush forests, sprawling cities, and fertile lands. His mind, clouded with thoughts of revenge, refused to accept that a mere desert had bested his forces. Cal Saturday in the command center of the Zorthan flagship, staring at the holographic map of Earth. His second-in-command, Commander Zarn, approached cautiously. "General, perhaps we should reconsider. The desert was not as it seemed. The planet may have other." Cal slammed his fist on the console. "Do not speak of the desert again," he growled. "We will not fail this time. We underestimated the humans and their strange planet, but they are primitive. Zarn, they have no real power. We will strike where they are weakest." Zarn hesitated. "And where might that be, General?" Cal pointed to the hologram, his finger hovering over the dense rainforests of South America. "The jungle. We'll land in their forests, away from the cities. We'll establish control and expand from there. The desert caught us by surprise. The jungle won't." On Earth, humanity remained on high alert. Satellite images of the Zorthan ships repositioning in orbit fueled fears of a second attack. Military forces across the globe prepared for what they believed would be a full-scale invasion. But this time, the aliens did not target the cities. A small, elite squadron of Zorthan troops descended from the sky, landing in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. Their mission to establish an outpost deep in Earth's wilderness and use it as a staging ground for future attacks. They expected resistance from the humans, but what they found was something else entirely. The dense canopy of trees blocked much of their equipment from functioning properly. Their scanners couldn't penetrate the thick layers of vegetation, and their drones, designed for open terrain, struggled to navigate the tight spaces between trees. The Zorthans pressed forward, determined to adapt, but just as in the desert, the planet itself seemed to have other ideas. As the Zorthans cut through the jungle, they noticed strange phenomena. Their equipment malfunctioned once again, not from sand, but from moisture and strange electromagnetic pulses coming from the Earth itself. Communication signals became garbled. Drones that ventured deep into the forest vanished, lost in the sea of green. Then, the jungle creatures began to appear. At first, it was harmless enough, a curious monkey swinging from the trees, the distant calls of birds, and the rustle of unseen creatures moving in the underbrush. But soon, the jungle seemed to come alive with intent. Deadly snakes struck from the shadows, spiders spun webs around vital equipment, and swarms of insects clouded their vision, biting and stinging with venom that paralyzed and disoriented. The Zorthans fought back, but no amount of advanced weaponry could stop the onslaught of nature. Their shields protected them from energy weapons, but they were useless against the vines that cracked through their camp at night, wrapping around soldiers' limbs and dragging them into the darkness. The rainforest had become a living enemy. Far above the chaos, a satellite picked up strange readings coming from the Amazon. Back at a secret base, the humans were watching closely. "Something's happening down there," a scientist muttered as she adjusted the monitors. "It's like the planet itself is fighting the invaders." An officer next to her frowned. "We noticed similar readings when they landed in the desert. Earth's ecosystems, it's almost as if they're rejecting the aliens." The scientist looked thoughtful. maybe it's not just Earth's defenses. What if the planet has evolved to protect itself from external threats? It's almost like a global immune system, and the aliens are triggering it. Is that even possible? The officers asked, incredulous. In theory, yes. Earth has survived countless catastrophes, asteroids, ice ages, volcanic eruptions. It's adapted. It's resilient. Perhaps the planet's ecosystems are more intertwined than we ever imagined. And now, the Zorthans have overcome something. Deep in the jungle, General Chaos and his remaining troops were struggling to survive. The rain fell in sheets, turning the ground to mud, while the dense foliage made visibility nearly impossible. Every step they took was met with resistance from the wildlife, from the plants, from the very earth beneath their feet. Chaos could hardly believe it. He had faced entire fleets in battle and emerged victorious. Yet here, on this backward planet, he was losing to mere animals and trees. The jungle, like the desert before it, had become a battlefield where technology was useless. At night, the Zorthans heard the cries of jaguars prowling just beyond the firelight. By day, massive anacondas slithered through the rivers, waiting to strike. Even the insects seemed to have formed a coordinated assault, overwhelming the Zorthans with their relentless attacks. It was as if the jungle itself was pushing them out, just as the desert had. Back in orbit, Commander Zarn watched helplessly as the jungle swallowed up their forces. General, we must retreat, Zarn pleaded through a garbled transmission. We can't fight the planet itself. Chaos, drenched and beaten, finally conceded. Order the extraction. This planet, it defies us. As the last Zorthan ships lifted off, abandoning their failed mission, the jungle returned to its natural state, the sounds of wildlife filling the air once more. The Zorthans, who had once believed Earth would fall easily, now understood that this planet was unlike any they had encountered before. They had come to conquer, but Earth had fought back, not with armies or advanced weapons, but with its very nature. The Zorthans retreated to the safety of space, leaving humanity to wonder what other secrets did their planet hold, and if the invaders returned, would Earth rise again to defend itself? The Zorthans, once so confident in their supremacy, had learned a humbling lesson. Earth was not a prize to be taken. It was a living force, and it would not go quietly.